Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the SICC webinar on the business case for green manufacturing. We are delighted to have a panel of experts with us today to talk about sustainable practices in manufacturing and the environmental and financial benefits that come with such practices. True sustainability lies in respecting the environment, reducing carbon emissions, and developing new businesses which enable the economy to transition to circular models of production and consumption. That is why it is so encouraging to hear the successes in both the private and public sectors in moving forward to achieve this transition. All this is happening for the best of commercial reasons, survival, also known as sustainability. Today's webinar is organized in collaboration with exclusive event sponsor, Schneider Electric. Many thanks indeed for your support. In a little while, I will be inviting Mr. Yoon Yang Kim, Cluster President, Singapore, Malaysia, and Brunei, Schneider Electric, to deliver opening remarks. After his remarks, Mr. Yoon will then hand over the time to our keynote speaker, Mr. Soh Leng Wan, Assistant Chief Executive Officer from Enterprise Singapore, to deliver his address. This will then be followed by a panel conversation with our experts. Without further ado, I would now like to hand over the time to Mr. Yoon. Mr. Yoon, please.
Thank you, Sharon. Very good morning, everyone. I'm very glad and it's a pleasure meeting you. And let me just shortly introduce about Schneider. Schneider Electric is an organization that we have revenue close to 27 million euros, market cap of 80 billion euros, as well as presence on the more than 100 countries, and being very focused on energy management and automation. Is an organization that is more than 185 years old, as well as a footprint of 200 plus factories in the world and 100 plus distribution centers. We can see factories around this area as well in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, and nearby. So we as a company that has been very much in the energy and automation, and this is bringing very much close to the sustainability angle. The angles that we believe that with our technology and digital solutions are able to achieve our sustainability goals. We ourselves set own targets, which is 2025, which is 4 years from now, to achieve carbon neutral in all our facilities, all our factories. In 2030, make sure that our suppliers start to work on the decarbonization. That means making sure that our scope 3 is working towards the direction of the sustainability. 2040, having end-to-end carbon neutral value chain. That means the whole value chain would be carbon neutral for us in our value chain on the supply side as well as in the customer side. And get on 2050 net zero CO2 supply chain. So net zero is quite a big challenge, but I think we are very ambitious and we are sure that we are going into that path. I'll give one of the example of our building that's supposed to be a part of the program. Due to the restrictions, I think we are not able to do so. But is a Kallang building where we are in a building that is 30 years old, a brownfield, where we were able to achieve more than 50% of reduction of energy consumption, as well as achieve the BCA Platinum level. Recently, 2021 is already carbon neutral building, and in 2022 we are targeting to achieve SLE, which is super low energy building. And we can give other examples of our vendor working on it, as well as like a Samoa Group. We have been working together on the automation and the sustainability journey. So with that, I would just want to share that we are a company of digital and technology solutions for sustainability. And we are willing to cooperate and share more details with you and give a lot of technological solutions and digital solutions to help in your sustainability journey. So with that, I hand over to Mr. Soh Leng Wan, which is Assistant CEO for ESG. Hand over to you, Mr. Soh.
Thank you very much, Yong Kim. Yep. Good morning, everyone. And I'm glad to join, I think, the many stakeholders here today, I think, in this webinar on green manufacturing. And first, let me thank the Singapore International Chamber of Commerce, as well as Schneider Electric for organizing this event. So my very short address today actually shall just focus on the business case for green manufacturing in Singapore. And let me start off by answering actually why manufacturing in Singapore, right? And clearly, I think manufacturing has been a cornerstone of Singapore's economy over the decades. And in 2020, it continues to account for more than 20% of Singapore's GDP and employs more than 10% of our workforce in good jobs. And just as industry automation brings about new opportunities for the manufacturing sector over the past decade, we believe that the green revolution will establish a strong business case for green manufacturing in Singapore. And let me elaborate on this, looking at it from three lenses. The first lens, I think, is about growing the business top line, or what I term as manufacturing for green opportunities. Manufacturing is fundamentally about serving market needs. I mean, it's about the production of components, subsequently end products to serve customers, be it B2B or B2C. And the pursuit of a greener economy will create new business opportunities for our manufacturing companies. We are seeing this today. Existing firms are diversifying their product range to meet new demand, for which the end market is a green market. Let me give some examples. The demand for green materials. Right? We have a number of packaging SMEs in Singapore who have diversified into providing packaging materials which consist of recycled content, as their clients, I think, respond to consumers' preference for sustainable packaging. Take another example, demand for green energy. What seems to be a very traditional industry, our marine engineering firms are leveraging on their engineering capabilities to produce floating platforms and equipments to support the offshore renewables industry. And so while their traditional business of offshore oil rigs fall, a new industry of offshore renewables rise alongside this green revolution. We are also seeing many new entrants into the manufacturing space as new green products emerge. The demand for green mobility, right, where we see the electrification of vehicles and vessels spurring many new technological developments across the supply chain, be it in the domain of batteries or sensor technologies. The demand for green food, not many of us know of alternative proteins a decade ago, but increasingly we see it mainstream in this decade. And food production will increasingly be more of a manufacturing process from an efficiency perspective as we seek to find more sustainable ways to feed the world's population. So there are many more examples of new green products in demand. If we review actually what constitute our existing products and their supply chains, and it is for every business to understand its market of influence and seek out opportunities it can reveal itself to. The second lens I would like to share is that of green manufacturing process. And this is about resource optimization and optimizing the cost base. Manufacturing is a process where it takes in various inputs to produce an output. A green manufacturing process is thus about how we can be more sustainable in doing this. Let me share three common examples. One, material substitution, which is about the substitution of a non-biodegradable material with an environmentally friendly material, thereby minimizing waste. Two, material product or system redesign, and this involves the improvement of product quality, improvement of product cost, as well as improvement of product lifetime, in particular through the use of data analytics and AI, with the end result to reduce resource take, in terms of water, electricity, as well as to just reduce waste. This approach is not unlike what we have been pushing in terms of the productivity drive amongst businesses, and for which digitalization has significant scope to enhance performance. A third example of a green manufacturing process is that of industrial symbiosis, which is where companies located in close proximity, for which waste from one company can be used as raw material for another, and thereby eliminating waste and reducing the need to create or source for new materials for its manufacturing production. In essence, the creation of a circular economy. By no means are these illustrations above exhaustive, and as technology improves, we can put our minds to better R&D, and we will find better and greener means to manufacture. Let me share the third lens, which is about looking at business stakeholders and appreciating that green business can be good business. So there are two groups of stakeholders I would like to share. First, we talk about external stakeholders, I think, who are taking note of what a business stands for. So we are seeing more perceptive customers, I think, voting with their dollars in green products, green services, green businesses. And as important as the quality of the product or offering is the brand. And businesses who wants to be the market leader cannot afford not to be a brand leader in the green space. Similarly, many investors are taking note where to park their funds with ESG considerations. And businesses with a meaningful green proposition can avail themselves to investment opportunities which otherwise may bypass. But beyond external stakeholders, I think we should also consider our internal stakeholders. A company which imbues sustainability in its business can strengthen the purpose in its workforce, as they see the role they play in making a contribution to the global sustainability movement. And we believe that this in turn will enhance the company's talent attraction and retention efforts. So these three lenses: 1, manufacturing for green opportunities; 2, green manufacturing processes; and 3, that green businesses can be good business, sets a good business case for green manufacturing, which applies to all manufacturing firms, be they large MNCs, SMEs, or just startups. Finally, I would like to share that the case for green manufacturing in Singapore, in typical Singapore fashion, is a partnership. The Singapore government partners and supports our businesses in this journey to be green and to seize green opportunities. Our research centers, be it within the Institutes of Higher Learning or be they in the A-Stars Research Institutes, are keen to work with various businesses to do joint R&D or support the adoption of green technologies in their manufacturing process. Our economic agencies, such as my Enterprise Singapore, as well as the Economic Development Board, will also work with companies to support them to seize new green businesses. Our infrastructure and resource agencies, such as JTC, alongside the Energy Market Authority, the National Environment Agency, as well as PUB, will in their respective domains support businesses to be more resource efficient and facilitate the development of a circular economy where feasible. There are also many opportunities where SMEs can partner MNCs in new green business opportunities, or as the MNCs adopt a greener supply chain. Industry associations like these chambers also do their part in creating opportunities like these to raise awareness and foster exchange of views and best practices. So together, we can make the future of manufacturing in Singapore bright and green. I look forward to the exchange of ideas in the subsequent session. I shall now invite Thomas to lead us in the panel dialogue. Over to you, Thomas.
Thank you very much, Leng Wan. And first, I would like to thank the panelists for joining me in this session. I'm privileged to have such an illustrious panelist, deep knowledge on the subject, talking about the business case as Leng Wan has kicked off in this session. So before I start the panel discussion, and by the way, I want to point out that there's an opportunity for you to put your question to the panel by going to the icon. I think it's in the middle of your screen at the bottom where you have the Q&A icon. So please do use it and post your question through that chat box, Q&A box, and we'll have to obviously run through what questions there are and have to post them to the appropriate panelists. So before I start, I'd like to say a few introduce to you our panelists. I'll start off a little bit with myself. So I'm a senior advisor at the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, and I've had nearly 35 years of long career with Shell before being a senior advisor to the Alliance. Occasionally I do lecturing as well at NTU. So a little bit about the Alliance. It is a global non-profit organization with a mission to end plastic waste in the environment. So the Alliance develop, deploy, and scale solutions to advance circular economy for plastic waste. It is unique in that it is formed by global leading companies across the plastic value chain that not only provides the funds, but resources that include knowledge and expertise to tackle this global concern of a problem. So today it has 66 member companies from all parts of the world, from producers, converters, brand owners, through to waste management companies and recycling companies. And I'm glad to say that it has chosen Singapore to locate its global head office. Today we have already over 30 projects around the world addressing plastic waste issue. So I'd like to introduce to you our first panelist. Besides Leng Wan, I think we'll talk about Leng Wan in a minute because I think you've heard him earlier. So first panelist I would like to introduce you is Lydia Lim. So Lydia has been working in the field of sustainable urban development, climate adaptation, resilience, and waste management for the past 20 years. Currently, she is JTC's Deputy Director for Sustainability. And in that role, she supports the sustainability transformation, decarbonization strategy, and roadmap implementation. She's got a very wide R&D portfolio. It covers the areas such as new materials, sustainable cooling, smart building controls and renewables. And she comes with, has worked more than 10 years in the industry and worked for a few years prior to that in the academia world. So that's our first panelist. I will introduce the next panelist, and that's Anthony Loy. Anthony Loy is the VP for Smart Sustainable Industrial Eco-Transformation with Schneider Electric. He joined the company in 2013 with a background in automotive industry and management consulting. So with 15 years experience in industrial transformation, he's engaged with passion in digital transformation. Since 2017, he leads Schneider's Energy's Smart Factory program, a value-driven transformation of Schneider Electric's factories across the geographies. And in his current role, he's addressing Schneider Electric's supply network to achieve their digital and sustainable ambitions. Well, last but not least, of course, Mr. Leng Wan himself. Leng Wan, I don't think needs much more introduction. He's Enterprise Singapore's Assistant Chief Executive for Manufacturing and Engineering. In that capacity, he leads various teams to champion enterprise growth in Singapore's manufacturing and engineering industry. Prior to this, Leng Wan spent 7 years with the Ministry of Trade and Industry in various portfolios to formulate policies and initiatives to ensure the competitiveness of Singapore economy as well as the vibrancy of Singapore as a global city and tourism destination. So the Q&A box is open. Please don't hesitate to pose your questions. The more, the merrier, I would say. The panelists have been psyched to address your questions. So please do put them up. In the meantime, maybe following Leng Wan's very clear and inspiring speech earlier on, I'm going to throw a big one at him, right? So, you know, you can have all these plans and you can have all these nice things said about a business case for green manufacturing. Maybe, you know, a big one is, Leng Wan, is there a target for green manufacturing in Singapore? And how green can manufacturing really be?
Thanks a lot for that, Thomas. So I think first, two parts of the question. I think the first part of the question, in terms of a target for green manufacturing, I mean, this is the top one. But just to share that, I think earlier this year, I think the Ministry of Trade and Industry, I think, share our vision to grow Singapore's manufacturing by another 50% by the year 2030. Right. So today's the manufacturing sector contributes about slightly over 100 billion to our GDP, and we seek to grow this by another 50% in the coming 10 years. Having said that, I think in this journey to grow the manufacturing sector, we see that we want our existing manufacturing companies to be greener. At the same time, I think we also want to establish new and green manufacturing business in Singapore. So to that question, is there a target for green manufacturing? I think specifically within the manufacturing sector, what proportion will be green? I think we don't set a target. I think as a whole, we want our whole manufacturing sector to be much more greener, and certainly for the manufacturing sector to grow, hopefully by another 50% in this coming 10 years. This second part of the question, how green can manufacturing really be? It is going to be challenging. I think we want to admit that upfront, especially if we equate green to carbon emissions in that regard, right? Which will be very high bar. And to be, I would say, carbon net zero will be a very challenging process for manufacturing companies. Definitely have to rely on carbon offset in most instances. But we have to start somewhere. I think as Yong Kim shared a bit in his earlier introduction, we can start by working towards carbon neutral, not necessarily net zero as a start. And this will be a journey, and as technology improves, we think we can get better at doing this. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Leng Wan. I think those are very ambitious targets. I guess, like everything else, something major like this involves all of us contributing to that effort, and definitely worthwhile exploring in terms of what those business cases might be. I see a question coming in from somebody I know. So Paul, hello Paul. Very well articulated question. I guess if you allow me to simplify, you're asking the question that at the end of the day, right, the customers are always king, of course, in terms of selection of products. They will look at the what you call upfront price. So in other words, they'll compare prices between products, between services, so on and so forth, right? So, and whilst we are driving for green manufacturing, how can the government agencies and private sectors really help, right, to adopt those green solutions, given that there's a perception that green manufacturing would cost more? Yeah. So that's the if I understand the heart of the question. Can I maybe bring in Anthony from a private sector point of view first, and then I'll go to maybe Lydia on the government agency side. So Anthony, over to you, please.
Sure. And no, I think it's an excellent first question that really sets the tone for the discussion today. And I'll position Schneider on two sides, as a solution provider, but we are also in manufacturing, so we also supply services. And as a manufacturer, as was said before, we have 200 factories, a large distribution network. We are also very focused on the bottom line. And what we do today is that we have set internal mechanisms where we translate green and CO2 in financial elements. I'll give you just one example. I'm part of a team where we are doing our whole manufacturing and logistic network design. And today we supply services for transport from Singapore, for instance, where we distribute worldwide. But CO2 and the cost of CO2 is getting integrated in all our simulations. So when we make decisions on sourcing transport services, being through air, sea, and so on, we integrate the cost of CO2 in our decisions, and we decide to work with some partners or to set a certain route based also on the CO2 cost. It's not the unique factor, obviously, but it's part of the cost. Now, when I look at the customer side and what we offer to our customers, I'll give you an example that says that, okay, the private company have to be part of the solution, and we need to understand this from our customer point of view. And here I have an example where we have a utility. Our product, we have also some switches, circuit breakers. These are products that can be working for 20, 30 years. And we find also now new way of working with our customers where we are able to retrieve and refurbish some active elements, not the whole not the whole product, but just the active element. And here we do a leapfrog in terms of generations. The product will get connected. But by doing that, in fact, we cut by 2 the cost to upgrade the facility. So it's a win for the customer because he's able to extend the life of the product. It's a win for our manufacturing because we don't have to completely remanufacture the product. And in the end, for us as a supplier with our customer, we improve the relationship that we have because we become part of their own sustainability progress. So that's just 2 practical examples of how do we integrate sustainability and the potential extra cost of green manufacturing, but which in the end can create value for the customer.
Thank you, Anthony. So there we are, Paul, and audience. You've got a private sector player who is actually, Schneider Electric has put a lot of their businesses into sustainability. I believe that it forms now a very big chunk of what you do for your customers. Obviously, it has been successful, otherwise you wouldn't be able to grow it. Thank you for your response. Let me move to Lydia, and maybe from the government agency's perspective. I note, of course, that in case the audience is not aware, but JTC is the lead agency to spearhead the planning, promotion, and development of a dynamic industrial landscape in Singapore. That's your primary goal and mission. So from that perspective, Lydia, would you like to respond to Paul's question?
Thank you very much, Thomas. Yes, Paul, that is a very well-posed question with respect to the price sensitivity to green solutions versus the conventional ones. And I feel that from a government perspective, there are certain areas we can help to proliferate and help to reach a price equilibrium. One angle would be to support creating the demand for those solutions that truly will make a difference in reducing carbon footprint. And when we create the demand for such solutions, it will help to bring the price down to more competitive levels. And the second way in which we could possibly contribute is to ascertain the authenticity of these green solutions by perhaps coming out with a framework that can measure and certify that it's truly green. So such frameworks can give confidence to the product in an atmosphere or in an environment that are many variables, many similar products for choice. And finally, from the third angle is from innovation R&D perspective. If we could partner, we could have a partnership with the developers of these green solutions at the early stage, that will give us confidence in the adoption of these solutions later on, and maybe even help to bring it to market. And perhaps we can also take a more long-term perspective to temporarily tolerate the price difference in the beginning and give the private sector the chance to catch up later on as it becomes cheaper. So that is my point of view for this question.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you very much. I just take this opportunity, right, to do a bit of advertisement for the Alliance, because Paul is from Dow Chemicals, and Dow is a member of the Alliance to End Plastic Waste. So thank you very much for that excellent question. I also know that Dow Chemicals has been working very, very hard on green manufacturing in their own facilities all around the world. In fact, they're very proud to have indicated large savings as a result of that effort. Lydia, can I continue with you? Because let's go to some sort of maybe hopefully some examples on, from JTC's point of view, right? Can you share some examples of how JTC has adapted to the evolution of green manufacturing? Obviously, it hasn't just happened overnight, but it has featured more strongly in today's world, comparing today's development considerations against that of 20 years ago, say, for example, because JTC is still developing a lot of new sites and a lot of new infrastructure today compared to 20 years ago. So if you would be able to share views also a little bit, to cast your eyes on the crystal ball, what it might look like in 20 years' time. So it's a heavily loaded question, but hopefully you can address that one.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for this question. I'll be more than happy to take this on, but I hope not to take too long a time and leave some time for the other panelists as well. So Singapore has come through a very long industrial development. In the early 1980s, we are predominantly labor capital intensive. You saw our old generation industrial estates. And then in the year 2000s, we are in the knowledge and productivity intensive economy. And now we are in 2020s. This is a new evolution where there's high focus on sustainability and digitalization. So answering your question, how JTC has adapted to this evolution and this new focus on sustainability as an industrial master planner and developer, I can give 3 angles from which we have of our adaptation, and also drawing strong linkages to the keynote speech by Leng Wan. Predominantly from his second lens on green manufacturing processes, at the master planning level, we have started to look into the planning of circular estates. And this is linked to our crystal ball and our wish list that maybe in 20 years' time, we help to produce circular estates that has ideally carbon neutral or net zero footprint. So in this respect, we have started looking into development of tools that will help us in the master planning processes. Not there yet, but the journey has started. From another angle of the second lens of green manufacturing processes, we want to enable our customers. So provision and accessibility to solar renewables is an important factor and criteria that our prospective customers will be on the lookout for. And we want to remain attractive to our customers. So maybe a lot of the audience will know that JTC has been quite advanced in our solar land and solar roof program, where we give the customers the opportunity to tap on our contracts with no upfront capital investment, so that you can use the premises for renewable generation. So I feel that this is a significant step in cleaning your manufacturing process. And thirdly, a very important angle which we increasingly recognize is that we are going beyond the mere infrastructure provider role that we traditionally took. We now saw that there's an opportunity for us to be a transformer of our customers. And a good example of this is on 23rd of July this year, jointly with our partners, is a good example of a tripartite partnership, jointly with A-Star and TUSUD. We launched a tripartite initiative called Green Campus, where we want to develop a holistic and scientific sustainability framework that will enable our customers and our companies to evaluate scientifically the environmental footprint of their operations, which definitely cover predominantly their manufacturing operations, which are very specific and customized. So in order to identify areas of improvements with the biggest financial and strategic impact. So this reflects our JTC's fundamental belief in collaborating for achieving sustainability impact. And finally, linking to the third lens that Leng Wan has mentioned about green business can be good business, and external and internal stakeholders trust is extremely important for you to be successful. We are very conscious in manufacturing our industrial spaces. We imbue sustainability design considerations all the way from planning design, construction to operation and maintenance, so that our products, JTC's products, which is our industrial spaces, is also green. And this can continue to be attractive to the eco-conscious business and the future workforce who are very savvy in this area. So I guess with this, I hope I answer you, Thomas' question adequately.
Thank you very much. Very exciting, I would say, right? The transformation over the last 20 years. And, we look forward to the next 20 years, which I think for certain will be different, right? One thing for certain that we know is that there will be change. And hope, we all hope it will be changed for the good. So I see more questions coming in, but before I entertain my friend Paul again, let me go to Anthony if I can. Anthony, first of all, thank you, of course, to Schneider Electric for sponsoring this activity, but more, I think, significantly, Schneider Electric earlier this year was given an award, and it was ranked by the world's most sustainable company by Corporate Knights. That's number one out of more than 8,000 corporates that Corporate Knights assessed, which is phenomenal. So can you share how Schneider Electric achieved that impressive position, and what were the main drivers?
Yeah, so the main drivers of this, let's say, journey for us are really at different level, and you see it's really about the inside. How do we live on sustainability at Schneider, but also what do we propose to our partners and customers? First of all, we set a vision very early on, 20 years ago, that the world would become electric, and that's, let's say, the early stage of our sustainability journey. We were one of the first signatory of the Carbon Pledge in 2017, the Climate Pledge last year, and we have very early on defined our science-based target for our CO2 objective. So that's one element about what we do internally. Now, externally, we deliver solutions and we innovate in the field of energy efficiency and sustainability. We have a combination of solutions which are IoT, data analytics enabled, so that we can monitor buildings, manufacturing operations, the grid, to become carbon efficient. But we also combine this with services, services that support our customers in defining their journey, because it's not always an easy start to understand your landscape. What's your CO2 footprint? What are the actions that can be taken? So we have also this service, and a large share of our revenues are coming from offers that we call green premium, and very close to what Lydia was saying is that do you have biosource materials, but also do you have solutions that are improving the CO2 impact of your customers? So this is what we call green premium offers. Another thing which is very practical, but really make a huge impact on our employees, is that we have a sustainability component in our internal short-term incentive plans since 2011. So since I joined, I have personally, but also with my colleagues, sustainability as part of our focus on a yearly basis. And finally, this translates also on some objectives that we have very close to the sustainability development goals. So we have set since also 2005 what we called a Schneider Sustainability Index, which is a set which is evolving today. It's 11+1 KPIs aligned with the sustainability development goals, and we focus on climate actions, resources actions, but obviously all the equal opportunities and how to integrate also all the different generations in our workforce. So as you can see, we have a well-balanced internals and external ambitions on sustainability, with a strong focus, obviously, on energy efficiency and how digital can help you to make these transitions to a sustainable manufacturing, sustainable supply chain.
Anthony, I'm going to follow that up a little bit, right? Because, I mean, here we have Schneider Electric, a very large, successful company. And I'm speaking now on behalf of many SMEs here in Singapore, right? So if I'm an SME in Singapore, I hear about green manufacturing, you know, a little bit of what Greta Thunberg will say, you know, blah, blah, blah. So you get all these blah, blah, blah out there. And how do I, as an SME, right, approach a giant like Schneider Electric? I mean, is it something you're interested in? Is it because they have this fear factor of approaching an organization like you? How can you help them, you know, along that journey?
Yeah, I'll give one example here on what we do with SMEs. As we want to have a sustainable supply chain, we need to address scope 3. And scope 3 is all our suppliers. And in our suppliers, we have MNCs, obviously, but we have a lot of SMEs because we have 200 factories. Some of them are very local, and we have sites, as was said earlier, in Southeast Asia, with SMEs who are suppliers. Now, we are cooperating since June this year with our top 1,000 suppliers. A lot of them are SMEs. They will have 2, 3, 4, 5 factories for the largest one. And we are sponsoring them and we are supporting them in their decarbonation. We challenge them, and they took the commitment to work with them to cut by 2 their CO2 emissions in the next 5 years. And on the top 1,000, we already have 94%, 95% to committed. So how do we do that, and how do we? They can do it on their own, obviously, but we can also support them. And this is where the combination of solution and services work well. So it started with deploying our expertise to understand and to coach them on defining their CO2 footprint today. And that's the first thing. You need to measure, obviously, and you're not always comfortable on defining what's your landscape today. We have some consulting that can be, here we speak about 8 hours. So we offered 8 hours of training to all our suppliers to let them understand what are all the levers that you can use to impact your CO2 footprint. And now what we do as well, and here we are quite open, and our factories are open. The closest one we have is in Batam. It's an operation who's been there for a long time. We have also a distribution center in Jurong. They are open also for you to understand what we are doing, because yes, we are a large corporation, but our sites, are not that big. You can really benchmark what we are doing at the site level, discuss with the plant manager, discuss with the distribution manager. And at the site level, we have very comprehensive approach, which is duplicable. So also an advice here for the SMEs is start benchmarking. I used to walk the floor and to go from a factory to another. You need to start benchmarking and look at what others are doing. Here, Schneider can help, because we have, for instance, here in Singapore, we've been working with a group, Sanwa Group, within a plastic manufacturer. It's also a supplier of us. And they took the challenge to go digital in their operations. First of all, for efficiency of their operations, the capacity to sustain growth and so on. But at the same time, to control the energy bill during this period. And we have implemented for them an energy control tower. So all their equipment are getting connected. They have the real-time visibility. And this has, let's say, deliver for them a significant energy reductions on a daily basis that they are able to monitor and confirm thanks to the metering that they have in place. So we have an approach which is specific to SMEs. We've been in Singapore for decades, and we know that the footprint has to be, we know that our offer has to be tailored and designed for SMEs. And so we'll be more than happy to have discussions or to share what we are also doing with our manufacturing operation first.
Now, thank you, Anthony. So I think in short, you welcome SMEs, you welcome the challenge, you think you have a program to address what they need. I like the idea of opening up your own operation, so it serves as an inspiration to what can be achieved. Thank you for those examples. So I hope people will be calling you very shortly and have further discussions with you on how you can help them. Maybe changing the angle a little bit, and given that we're in the middle of a pandemic, or trying to manage from a pandemic to an endemic, it's very topical, of course. Maybe I can go to Leng Wan on this one. And there's also a question coming in from Paul around the application of research into practice. But I'll just set that aside a little bit, because I think that deserves a separate, a separate sort of debate and discussion around this. So to you, Leng Wan, during this very challenging pandemic period, many businesses, especially the small ones, they're struggling to survive, let alone think about, green manufacturing. So, how does Enterprise Singapore address this dilemma, right, for industry out there, for manufacturers, and perhaps something on how Enterprise Singapore can help in that fight for survival and prepare for hopefully a brighter future.
Yep, thank you, Thomas, for that question. Indeed, I think the first thing that comes to many businesses, I think when we talk about being greener in manufacturing, is indeed a cost consideration. But I think that is also where I would like to refer back to my address. I think when we spoke about adopting the different lenses to look at it. And from a cost perspective, I think one thrust of the whole green manufacturing is really about how we can actually better reduce the cost base, optimize the cost base. Because green manufacturing need not necessarily be more expensive, but it's about doing things smarter, more sustainably. And I mean, taking reference to what Lydia has shared, right? In terms of their collaboration with A-Star, between A-Star and JTC, in terms of the Green Compass, is about taking a life cycle approach in terms of what it means in terms of adopting some of these green technologies in the manufacturing process. So it need not necessarily be a more expensive endeavor. Having said that, I think we are also cognizant that there can be upfront costs involved, I think, in this process. So even from a life cycle approach, sometimes it can be overall, actually more cost effective to do so. I think for businesses, it's a question of cash flow as well. The upfront cost on investment, would they be staying long enough to reap the benefits subsequently? And that is where I think the government, continues to support, companies in this journey. In fact, I think perhaps later this morning, you will read in the media release that I think Enterprise Singapore will be rolling out a program, we term it the Enterprise Sustainability Program, where we will help businesses actually defray some costs in developing sustainable products, services, or to engineer their processes. And hopefully this support will go some way in defraying the upfront costs and help businesses, I think, better make that step in adopting a green manufacturing process. I would like to just add 2 more points to that as well. So beyond, taking a life cycle cost approach, beyond the government stepping in, I think, to help defray some costs through our grant schemes, I think it's important to also look at it in terms of how actually in this process, when we talk about green manufacturing, we really grow our revenue base in that regard. And because at the end of the day, it's not about just trying to lower costs, but it's about growing the top line. And that really is what the business is about, having that greater revenue growth, for that to rise faster than the cost base. So I would like to just reiterate that point in that regard. And finally, a point I think which Anthony has kind of touched on, but I thought it's useful to reiterate also, which is that I think at the end of the day, the stakeholders do, I think, chip in this regard. And by stakeholders, I think in this particular point, it's about consumers, I think, who are prepared to pay that premium as well. And that is where I think the government is, I think, taking efforts to also educate consumers, about, I think, the demand for sustainable products, for green products. And as what I think Lydia has also shared earlier about how we can be, I think, as a procurer of products and services that we also demand, and we pay, I think, the right level for these green products and services. So I think every stakeholder has their part to play. And I think that is where I think it is a partnership where we hope to make this a sustainable journey. Yeah.
Fabulous, Leng Wan. I think that's very encouraging. Maybe at the JTC level, Lydia, if you could just comment a little bit, especially around the sort of challenges and opportunities that JTC is offering, companies or tenants, association enterprises, to battle through this. What is really a challenging period? So if you can give us perhaps some encouragement as to how JTC has approached this period and into the future. You have a unique position, right, as an agency. How do you help them along this journey towards something brighter?
Hi, Thomas. Thanks for that question. So linking to what I have previously mentioned, we could help them in the partnership in R&D. That's one of the significant ways that we give technical and financial support in the creation of, for instance, in their product redesign. And in coming out with Green Compass, it is really a framework that is hoped to be hopefully penetrative and highly customized to their each company's unique processes that we wish to have a greater analysis and systematically identify how they could be zooming in on the low-hanging fruits for most significant short-term impact. So in the form, it is a co-education journey, and also changing the mindset that we are coming in from this angle to help the customers in our space. And from an infrastructure perspective and ecosystem building perspectives, we hope to curate the right atmosphere with the right environment in our spaces that would encourage them to form partnerships within each other through our engagement and outreach programs, so that they are enhanced in the process to identify opportunities to green their manufacturing. And finally, to strengthen the business case for green manufacturing, as I mentioned earlier, is to create the demand for the products. And that is one of our direct ways that we feel that we can assist them in this journey.
No, thanks, Lydia. Thanks very much. I would now perhaps go to Paul's other question around, if I understand correctly, Paul, this is about a lot of good work done on R&D, developing new ways of addressing a challenge or solution. But often, from research outcome, how do you actually commercialize it? How do you actually take it from the concept stage right into commercial application? In that respect, I think a few words about what the Alliance to End Plastic Waste has been trying to do is that beyond just encouraging innovation, we have supported and sponsoring activities of, for example, plug and play, where we get innovators out there coming up with not only their ideas, but put forward already developed ideas. And this plug and play platform will enable them basically to engage with commercial organizations out there. So it's a facilitation platform that provides them rigor in terms of developing their business plan, right? And help them to launch into the commercial world such innovative solutions that they have developed. And I know a bit of advertisement maybe for ESG's or Enterprise Singapore's Sustainable Open Innovation Challenge, for example, which the Alliance, by the way, is very proud to be participating in terms of a challenge statement. That kind of platform also helps to bring out the innovators and engage them with the commercial world by providing that facility. So maybe I've already answered some of your question, Leng Wan, but I'm sure you can add to that. So over to you, Leng Wan.
No, thanks a lot, Thomas. Indeed, I think it's good to have the alliance, join in the Open Innovation Challenge, and we run many of these challenges to help to bring, I think, real life problem statements, faced by the companies with innovators who try to find solutions and commercialize it in a practical manner. So beyond that, I think one of the things which I also highlighted earlier is I think that collaboration. That Paul's question fundamentally is about how do we bring, I think that collaboration with research institutes to fruition, be it at the company level perhaps, or even at the industry level. So first, I think if I speak about it at the company level, I think that is where beyond coming out with that research finding is really adoption by the company, right? And I think if companies do face challenges in adopting it, or need to defray some of the upfront costs, I think in adopting the solution, I think that is where I think government agencies like Enterprise Singapore can come in to help a bit in the upfront differing costs, right? Then I think it is also a larger question, but how do we, actually promulgate that, I think, for the larger industry to adopt solutions where applicable. This is where I think the research institutes work with, I think, the A-stars, I would say, institutions. For example, the Singapore Institute of Manufacturing Technology, or SIMTech, which I believe many manufacturing companies will be familiar with, right? How they actually try to adopt some of these findings to make it into more, I would say, modular solutions which can be adopted by companies. And Enterprise Singapore works with SIMTech, for example, to fund them, I think, to approach companies to adopt some of these solutions where possible as well. So again, not every solution may necessarily be, I would say, immediately adopted. It's not necessarily a plug and play solution. There might be some kind of adjustment, adaptation needed by the company. But that is where I think it's important for the companies to also approach, I think, institutions like SIMTech, where they can find out what is already readily available in terms of adoptable solutions, adapt it where necessary. I think Enterprise Singapore comes in to help defray a bit of the cost in terms of the upfront adoption, and hopefully that starts the journey onwards. Yeah.
Thank you, Leng Wan. So obviously there are good channels, there are systems in place to try and encourage that. It is always a challenge, I think, from innovators' point of view. How do they get their good ideas, out there? And this applies certainly in the academic world. I think Lydia spent some time in the academia, so some of those frustrations are out there. Maybe I'll bring it back to also at the private sector level, Anthony. So can you comment a little bit about Schneider Electric sort of how shall I say it, awareness or look out to R&D activities that are out there, whether or not it is with higher institutions, as Paul was saying, or with basically very good thinkers and innovators. To what extent does Schneider Electric rely also on the broader community beyond its own capability, right? And how do you harvest some of those great ideas on green manufacturing, in your operation and in your offering to your customers?
Yeah. Thanks, Thomas, for this question. So yeah, we've been operating for more than 100 of years. So we have a core of Schneider Electric, which has a strong legacy, but we know that things are moving really fast around us. That's why a couple of years ago, we created what we call an innovation, but at the edge organization, which is looking outside of Schneider, because we need to go much faster by cooperating. And so we had to formalize these cooperations with specific way of working and collaborating, finding ways to integrate our solutions with these innovations. And so we are very active in US, Europe, China, and Southeast Asia. And by the way, we have also several incubations ongoing here in Singapore with a joint activity between Schneider and EDB. And innovation can come also on the, what I wanted to say, because you have a strong focus on the CapEx required for the transformation. Innovation can come also on the business model. So more and more what we do, and here I'll have two examples of what we've done here in Singapore and in US, we partner also with financial institutions. And it's how do you make sustainability as a service? And you realize today that financial institutions are looking to partner with us because they also want now to promote in all their investment sustainability-based projects. And so we find ways, here in Singapore, it's a first incubation that we've done called NAVIX, where you can have power and cooling as a service. And so that limit for you the upfront investment. But we have also a company called Green Structure, which is delivering to you for 10, 20 years, renewable energy as a service with all the maintenance integrated. And what we do, what we are able to do for our customer is that we are able to bring together all the network of partners. So some of them will be innovative companies that for an SME, it can be quite complex to work with because these very young companies, they have a fluctuating business model, they have a product that is still evolving very fast, and you may not feel comfortable working with these people. And so this is where you need to have a larger partner, like Enterprise AG, JTC, or Schneider, who will, let's say, bundle the innovation for you, they risk the innovation for you. And in this case, we go up to finding a financial partner who will, let's say, smooth the transition for you to innovation. But obviously, you need, and that's my experience. I was leading the digital transformation of our factories also. So I was also in a position where I had to look externally for some partners and decide with who I would be working. And there is a notion of risk. Now, you need to have a few partners anyway to look outside for you. It's not a world where you can do things on your own. The product is important. And I think for all of us who are in manufacturing, we have a strong knowledge of our product and the value added that we are bringing on the market. Now, for all the transformations around, and sustainability and green manufacturing is one of them, we need to have partners who will advise us and expose us to what's happening around. So that's why we decided to launch this innovation at the edge activity to also look outside, incubate, and bring in our portfolio or bring to our customers the best innovations where it's making sense for them.
No, thank you, Anthony. So, like a good company, I guess you're always on the lookout, right, for good ideas, and also innovators can come to you directly, and
Sure.
put them to a case to you and your company in terms of considerations. I have a question that's come in. I managed to somehow not see it earlier from Guilhem. If I terrible pronunciation, sorry. So this question is reminds me of a good speech during the recent Temasek Eco-Sparrow. It might be still going on at this point in time. When there was a keynote speaker who talked about one of the risks of the so-called sustainability ticket, right? The risk of companies or organizations doing what they do because of greenwashing. So I think it's an interesting topic for this panel in terms of the risk of building a business case around greenwashing rather than really green manufacturing per se, right? And I think this question here, which is the second question in our Q&A box, I think primarily tries to basically provide some form of governance, some form of unified indicators, so that you keep everybody focused on what really matters, rather than nice talks around and perhaps misplaced effort and funds into activities that really does not benefit both the customers, your company, and the environment, right? It could potentially lead to something that could even be more damaging than before. Very broad issue, maybe, and somewhat challenging. I would actually like to maybe target a little bit again to Lydia and Leng Wan in terms of how the government approaches this. How does it provide guidance? How do you play a role in terms of making sure that people are not, parties are not greenwashing in that process, but actually delivers the desirable outcome we talked about earlier on, right? Which I would, summarize towards the end. But you talk about reducing real costs, increasing real efficiency, focusing on innovation, those kind of good outcomes. So maybe I can start with Leng Wan, and then I'll go on to Lydia.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. So I think we are also not starting from scratch. I think in this journey, in terms of what are some of these indicators. I mean, we spoke about resource efficiency, for example, be it. So I think there are many indicators today, I think, which companies really watch out for. But I think it is a larger question, which is alluded to, is that when we use the word green, when we use the word sustainable, which aspects do we encompass, and how holistic do we actually take into account all these various aspects. And I would say that the Singapore government agencies are involved with, I think, many other international bodies to review this. I think first is to have a common understanding of the taxonomy, perhaps if we could use that, right? So when we refer to something, do we refer to the same thing? Because without, I think, clarity on taxonomy, I think we cannot move on to the next stage, then which is what is that right level, what is that right threshold, or the standards per se. So there's two parts to it, taxonomy first before we even move on to standards. And that is, I think, increasingly a focus, I think, for the financial sector, I think, where we are talking about green investments. When investors talk about, parking their funds in green investments, what are the indicators that you want to look out for? What is the taxonomy? What is the standards? And we are really driving that, starting from there, that where I think investors come from, right? Where the funds are going to, whether we can get consensus. I think you might have, I think it was also reported, I think, in today's news article, I think, where MES, I think, Mr. Ravi Menon, I think, shared his view, I think, from the MES view as well, that it is unlikely that, globally, we can come to one single standard across the world, right? There probably will be different standards across the world, but I think as much as possible, the principles of how we agree on it, I think we hope to come to consensus. I will also say that, I mean, this naturally will take some time, I think, to put it this way, because it is very much a consensus building approach, I think, across many bodies, not so much within Singapore, but really across, I think, many international bodies. But I think there is an impetus to want to come for some of these efforts to conclude soon. So we hope to see something coming up in the coming few years. Yep. Which will hopefully, I think, provide clarity and I think avoid this issue of greenwashing, I think, as you highlighted. Yep.
Thank you, Leng Wan. Lydia, would you like to add your comments?
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. So I believe the question came from an ex-friend of mine, Guillaume, who has posed this question. And it's a very interesting question. And I think I fully agree with Leng Wan's point that we have to agree on or establish a consensus on the principles and the common taxonomy. So from a practical perspective, JTC has thought deeply about this problem and how, because if our mission is to transform our customers to lower the carbon footprint, given the diversity of their activities, be it medtech or agri-food or construction industry, how to unify all of this and measure their progress in the sustainability journey is one question that we have been considering very seriously. And in our initiative for Green Campus, that is where we wanted a scientific approach where it can penetrate the manufacturers' processes in systematic verticals like energy, water, waste, carbon, product life cycle, and supply chain, and unifying them with a common denominator, which is ultimately carbon emission. So we believe that if we can filter down to this common denominator, we ultimately what we are hoping to achieve is our customers and the customers and our partners demonstrate to us your reduction in carbon emission in whatever stages of your life cycle, and that would be a good demonstration of the progress in sustainability. So it is with this in mind that we have designed Green Campus, and therefore to all the audience out there, especially SMEs where you need support to maybe pilot in this program to have some sense of the sustainability maturity of your company, I will encourage you to take this up or reach out to us so that we can help you in this journey.
Thank you, Lydia. And
Thank you, Thomas.
I would not let Anthony off with this question from a private sector's perspective, right? Because this is where rubber hits the road. And when rubber hits the road, it's the dollars that really counts. So Anthony, in your activities, in your company's businesses, providing services and consultancies around green manufacturing, how do you go about proving or showing the results that truly reflect the benefits of green manufacturing?
Yes, thanks for this question. And we had the case. I'm coming back on the indicators and having the right standardized indicators. We are actually in this case. The taxonomy is today under discussion in Europe. There will be a disclosure very soon, and we took some assumptions to define our own indicators already, and we hope and we believe that the taxonomy will not be that far from our own assumptions. But anyway, we decided to start. Now, we are also a global company and a global advisor, and we have to take into account different landscape, meaning we have especially our energy service, energy sustainability service, which is active in North America, Europe, Asia, and so on. This is why we have also a local presence every time when we do this consulting, because we will need to take into account this local taxonomy indicators that will be set. Now, we rely on third parties, and that's part of the question, but that is true and active today. We rely on third party to get the certification of the achievements, meaning we have the solutions to deploy it. But now, as I said earlier, we set our ambition and we advise our customers to set their ambitions based on science-based targets, for instance. We get audited on our sustainability reports. And so we have more and more third party able to advise us and validate what we publish. I'll give you again one example. I like giving an example from what we do actually. all our products, they have a sustainability two-pager that gives you the full CO2 impact of the product end to end, from the minerals that we have. So it's even going beyond sustainability. You know, there is also an element of traceability of the product, traceability of the green aspect of the product. And these are elements that get audited, obviously, by third party, because we also take, you know, it's a domain which is evolving. So we take also our own assumptions, but we also partner with organizations, NGOs who are able to advise us on the best practices. And then we get audited, because these are also information that we disclose and provide to our customers, because our customers are asking us these informations now. As they are building a new project, as they are building a new factory, for instance, we need to be able to provide them this information so that they can integrate it in their own CO2 calculation for their product.
Thank you. We're drawing down to the last 5 minutes or so, but there's one that I would like to put forward to the panel. You know, we talk about green manufacturing, and clearly to the audience who are, you know, well versed with respect to green manufacturing, it would be meaningful in terms of what that means to them and the businesses and the activities that they do. But to a lot of people out there, green manufacturing is, you know, fundamentally about carbon emissions, right? So you kind of associate green manufacturing to carbon, and addressing the carbon issue. It's very, very trendy. It's a bit of a fad, although having said that, as you know, there's been a huge amount of attention and work on this, and COP26 is coming up very shortly in Glasgow. I mean, how do you react to the comment or the perception out there that it's all about carbon emissions, which I can't see anyway, and as you know, there are climate change skeptics still, you know, out there. I do it because I want to avoid more tax and maybe, you know, get penalized for it, you know, rather than doing it because of the benefits, you know, in terms of a business case. So maybe a bit of comment from you, Lydia, if I may start with you, and then I'll follow with Leng Wan and finally Anthony again.
Thank you, Thomas. So my reaction to that the reduction of CO2 as the main fad or the main message, the main area of concentration of our attention right now is undeniable, because the effects will catch up with us. We see the glaciers melting. So even if businesses deny it, the physical symptoms will manifest. The extreme rainfalls will come. When your factories are flooded, it's no longer funny. You realize that we are part of a bigger, connected, independent, interconnected system. So I would feel that reducing carbon dioxide, although we can't see it, just like the COVID virus, is important because we are seeing the symptoms of it already. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. Leng Wan?
Thanks. Just to add on to, I think, what Lydia has shared, I think there are companies who are converts, there are companies who are perhaps who don't quite believe, I think, in this whole rhetoric. And while but the physical manifestation will come, as Lydia said. So while they might, for the perhaps non-believers, perhaps to put it this way, I think it's a process of education and perhaps discovery, that while they might see it as a step approach, as you said, I do this so as to avoid a higher carbon tax, for example, right? But I think at the end of the day, we believe that through this process, they will discover that this is meaningful at the end of the day. At the end of the day, it's about being more sustainable. It's about also improving their own cost base. So we hope that through this process, they will convert perhaps their beliefs, or at least start to have more conviction in it, if not from day one, but hopefully along the way. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Leng Wan. And finally, Anthony, please.
Yeah, one element very factual for us and for our customers, it's a profitable transformation. I mean, in 10 years, we increase our energy efficiency overall by 50%. So we see the 50% reduction of the energy bill. First thing, and you see that some prices are rising here and there. That's the first element, very tangible. So, and it has a positive, obviously, impact on the CO2 and so on. And the second note, and that will be my final remark there. Last week, I was part of a career fair with young students from universities from all over Asia. I can tell you that the level of questions that I received was at least at the level of questions that we had today in the chat, if not more. They are very fluent today in everything around decarbonation, scope 1, 2, 3, solar panels, who do you source, what about minerals and so on. And they are not asking these questions just by interest, that they will work for us, they will work for you only if you've done actions, tangible actions in these domains, because they understand that things are changing and we are in a very tense market today for talents. And they are becoming the first advocate of this transformation, and they will work for us, and they will help us to transform our organizations, our manufacturing and so on, only if they see that we are walking the talk on sustainability. And I found it very positive. I found it very positive because this is a positive pressure that will come on us to accelerate on this in this transformation.
Thank you, Anthony. So I think we're coming towards the end of this panel session. What I like to summarize a little bit, right? So what I'm hearing is, that this green manufacturing is much more than expectations. It's much more than looking good. It's much more than playing along with what's going on right now. There is a very strong business case to go towards so-called green manufacturing, and the business case is built around the reduction of cost. To borrow your point, Leng Wan, you will see a reduction of cost. It's driven by increased efficiency as a result in your operation. One thing that I'm passionate about is that it drives and fosters innovation, because when you're put against the wall, you start to think of new ways of doing your business. Yeah, and the examples of good innovation as a result of green manufacturing. Let me give you one. One of our members, Procter & Gamble, which is one of the largest brand owner companies in the world, the way they contribute towards green manufacturing is to come up with a product, a detergent that performs the same way at lower temperatures, right, in washing machines. So as a result, you save so much energy, in your customers' use of that new product, which otherwise, would require high temperature, like 70 degrees or 80 degrees. And the implications of that is way beyond, what people can perceive as a result of those type of innovation. It will reduce waste as a result of the process. There's a lot of waste in manufacturing, as we know today, right? Even in your own home, you look around food waste, you look around waste that you put out there. It will help us in the business to be a lot more focused around reducing the amount of waste. We talk about tax credits. Leng Wan and Lydia talk about the enabling regulation that's out there to help you bridge this transition period. So tax credits are real. They're not just fictitious and not something that's been talked about. The other of my favorite points is reputation, which has been drawn out here. Right? Customers ask you, what's your performance in that area? They care about the future. Lydia, as you said, it manifests itself, right, physically out there, glaciers or tidal waves, and for example, record high temperatures around the world in different countries, including Singapore, with more severe floods and so on and so forth. So reputation, I think, is something that sometimes smaller organizations do not see as clearly, but increasingly this is no longer an option. And finally, why not do something good for the environment in your business? A good environment is good business. So I think there's consensus here that there's a very strong case, business case for green manufacturing. I would like to close this panel session quoting the Senior VP of Schneider Electric, if I may, because I think he said it very well. So Schneider Electric VP, his name is Gilles Decroche. We aim to lead by example within our own operations and ecosystems. And we work to be part of the solution for our customers. Now, this is what you've been saying, Anthony. But this is the part I like. Sustainability improves performance. So sustainability improves performance, innovation, and our attractiveness as a place to work. It creates value, right? So instead of value destruction, it actually increases the value of your business. And I want you to go away with that particular tagline in your mind. Thank you very much, panelists. It has been a fabulous discussion. Thank you for your insights, and I thoroughly enjoyed the session. If I can hand this back to, I believe, Sharon.
Yes.
To you.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for facilitating such a content-rich conversation. And also to Lydia, Anthony, and Leng Wan for your insights. Many thanks to our participants for spending the time with us this morning. I'd like to encourage everyone to visit the Chamber website for upcoming events. And if you have any feedback or queries, do email us at here-to-help@sicc.com.sg. We have come to the end of today's event. Thank you once again. Please do take care and have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you once again. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.